Welcome back to SB2L Snap Back to Life. Today we have a kidney dietitian. We're starting off the month of April talking and getting to know your healthcare team. And today we have the kidney dietitian with us, Kate. Kate, thank you for coming on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you. And I think, of course, the dietitian is definitely a very important part of the care team for all stages of kidney disease. So happy to talk about this. And I know the nutrition stuff can be very, very confusing.
Yes, and sometimes it's overwhelming, especially like with the young demographic. They're like, all we hear is what we can't eat, and then I feel
Hmm.
like it's like, okay, what can we eat?
Exactly, exactly.
So, so I want to start off by asking you, what is a dietitian, and how does the diet help control or maintain chronic illness such as CKD?
Great question. First of all, I'll just share a little bit of background on myself. So, I previously worked as a dietitian in a dialysis clinic, and that was where I started to get to know just how much nutrition was a factor for kidney disease. Because I'll be honest, in my training as a dietitian, I feel like I didn't learn as much about kidney disease as I wanted to. I worked in dialysis clinics. I realized there was such a need. And then for the last 2 years, I have shifted towards working with not just patients on dialysis, but people with pre dialysis CKD, as well as people post kidney transplant. So all stages. As a dietitian, I completed an internship and passed a national board exam to work as a dietitian, and we are the experts in food and nutrition. And nutrition is a lot more complicated than just a meal plan. I think people think a dietitian just gives you a meal plan to follow, but what we do is we take into account your lab results, your medical needs, what types of foods you enjoy, and help you figure out, based on your situation, what is going to be the best approach for you to eat the right foods that's going to help your health outcomes, as well as help you still enjoy your food. That's really, really important for me, is that I still want my patients to enjoy the food that they eat, because it's not just about the nutrients. I think a lot of us have this, an emotional connection to the foods, what we eat as well. So I think that's very important, that you're still enjoying and participating in events and activities in your life that involve just the enjoyment of food. So food and nutrition plays a huge role in lots of different chronic illnesses. We have strong evidence that nutrition can impact heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, any conditions where there is an element of chronic inflammation in the body. Nutrition can play a role, and that is very much the case with kidney disease as well. And whether you are somebody pre dialysis trying to slow down progression of kidney disease, whether you are on dialysis trying to stay healthy and continue, living a full balanced life in the midst of doing dialysis treatments, possibly while working towards a transplant, or if you are post kidney transplant, nutrition is going to make a big difference in your lab results, but also how you feel.
Yes. Yes. So what do you feel like is maybe your biggest struggle when it comes to speaking with your patients on how to change and incorporate new diets?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, well, first of all, let me just say diet change in general is really hard, because
Hmm.
a lot of us are in the habit of eating a specific way. And it's really hard to think about maybe giving up certain things or making changes, shifting away from things that you know and things that are comfortable. That's definitely the biggest challenge. But when it comes to kidney nutrition, I think the hardest part is just the fact that there is so much conflicting information out there. And I think it's really easy as a patient for you to get distracted by all these different things, hearing about some people saying do this. This is the best approach. Other people saying, no, this other way is the right way to do it. Some of your healthcare providers might be telling you different things. Unfortunately, I know that sometimes as a dietitian, I might tell you one thing, and then your nephrologist is actually telling you something different.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more frustrating than when you hear different things, even amongst different members of your healthcare team. So there's just so much information, and you're hearing so many things from different people. And even amongst the healthcare team, oftentimes the information that you get can feel very fragmented, and people are not on the same page. So that just leads to a lot of confusion about what is the right approach to do. So what I always try to do with my patients is talk through, what are some of these things that you have heard previously. And I like to also discuss the current kidney nutrition guidelines and how things have changed. Because what we have traditionally thought of as the renal diet, um, which is this very restrictive diet, has changed a lot in the recent years. We originally had these kidney nutrition guidelines that came out in the early 2000s, 20, 25 years ago at this
Mhm.
point in time. And these guidelines provided a very restrictive way of eating for kidney health. Since then, not only have we had a lot of changes in different health and nutrition trends in general, like low carb diets and keto diets and all sorts of different things. But we also, as of 2020, we have new kidney nutrition guidelines that are a little less restrictive and allow for more flexibility. But a lot of these old guidelines are really sticking around. A lot of doctors and maybe even like a general dietitian who doesn't specialize in kidney nutrition might still be talking about some of these older guidelines. So first of all, I want patients to trust me that I am providing information that is in their best interest. And I know it can be challenging to hear information from me that is different, perhaps, than what you've heard in the past or what you're seeing people say online or in Facebook groups or other places that you're going to look for information. So I really think that developing that trust is the most important part, and knowing that in everything I'm telling you, I have your best interest at heart because I want you to be as healthy as you possibly can be. And I really want all of my patients to be successful in eating, the right diet that again is going to help your health, but also still let you enjoy the foods that you eat. So all the different sources of information. I think that's the hardest part. Is that kind of your perception as a patient, that you feel like you hear all sorts of different things too?
Yeah, so when I first started, because I'm a diabetic, a lot of the stuff they were telling me to just cut out my diet, I'm like, that is what maintains my blood sugar. Like, what am I
Mm-hmm.
supposed to eat? So I had a struggle, and then it was like I was speaking with my endocrinologist and I was speaking with my nephrology team, and I was kind of like, okay, well, I will try to just pick and choose, what is
Mm-hmm.
best maintaining both of my kidney diet and for my diabetic diet, because it's like it's a toss up. Do I
Mm-hmm.
eat this versus this? Do I focus on my blood sugar or do I focus on my labs for my kidney health? So
Right.
through time and trial and error, I've I've had the time to really narrow things down, but I still need, help, because for me, I feel like that high protein diet, it just doesn't work for me because
Mm-hmm.
it it makes me sick, like to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I'm like nauseous and stuff, and it's like I'm having to force myself to eat, where I'm seeing like these new trends in kidney diet where it's like, okay, yes, you need protein, but you can get them from plant-based
Mm-hmm.
solutions and resources. So that's why I'm trying to like reach out to people that really know more about that. And
Yeah, I think that traditionally the renal diet and the diabetic style diet, those have often been thought of as the hardest diets to combine, because again, when you go back to those older kidney nutrition guidelines from, again, the early 2000s, but they've been sticking around, they've been very persistent. They are kind of directly in conflict what we think of for a healthy diet for diabetes, which is higher in protein, higher in fiber, rich in a lot of different fruits and vegetables. The older renal diet restricted a lot of different types of fruits and vegetables and things with fiber that you think would be healthy for managing blood sugar. But based on these more recent guidelines, there is a lot more overlap for sure. And figuring out exactly what's the right balance for you is going to be based on things like, if you're diabetic, that's a factor. If you have high blood pressure and that led to kidney damage, that's going to be a factor in your diet. If you have lupus or a genetic or autoimmune disease that led to kidney damage, that diet might look slightly different for you. So it is very, very individualized. But it can be challenging to figure out exactly where is the right place to land. With the protein thing, that's really common among my many patients on dialysis that I have worked with. A lot of people do develop kind of a distaste for meat protein,
Mm-hmm.
find that it makes them nauseous or just don't have a taste for it. You do need to eat adequate protein when you're on dialysis because you lose some protein through the dialysis treatment. So you need to make sure that you are getting enough in your diet to make up for that. But based on, emerging, science in the last couple of years, there's definitely a lot of evidence that it doesn't necessarily have to be meat. There's other places that we can look to get that protein.
Yep. Okay, so what is a quote unquote kidney diet, and when should people start to incorporate that type of diet into their lifestyle?
Yeah. So typically what the kidney nutrition guidelines say is that if somebody is at stage 3 kidney disease, that's when they start to offer guidelines in terms of looking at maybe restricting protein. Now, this is where I think the big difference is with a kidney type of diet. If you have pre-dialysis kidney disease, like stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, not on dialysis, it is going to be recommended to limit the protein in your diet, not completely avoid protein. You need some, but cut back a little bit, or maybe look to shift to more plant-based proteins. Eating a very high protein diet, if you already have some kidney damage, can further put some pressure and burden on the kidneys and cause them to work a little bit harder. Eating a more plant-based or lower protein diet can help to relieve a little bit of the burden. It doesn't reverse any damage that's previously been done to the kidneys, but it can help to relieve the burden and help the kidneys to function more efficiently. Also, at that point in time, a lower sodium diet is typically part of what is recommended. Blood pressure management is hugely important for helping to keep the kidneys in good shape. And oftentimes, watching how much salt you eat is going to be a big factor in helping to keep the blood pressure controlled. And then another thing I would say that starts to come into play at stage 3, maybe stage 4, making sure you're staying well hydrated. It is very important for people with pre-dialysis kidney disease to make sure that they are getting enough water. And our goal is to try to slow things down and maybe prevent progression of disease. Now, if you're at the point of being on dialysis, things are going to shift. Our goal is no longer necessarily to slow down the disease progression, um, because the kidney function is very minimal at that point in time. What we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do when you are on dialysis is we want to make sure that we are keeping all of your labs well controlled. We want to make sure that you are maintaining a healthy weight, especially if you are working towards getting a kidney transplant. We want to make sure that we're keeping your blood sugars and blood pressure well controlled. Um, and again, like I mentioned before, a higher protein diet is going to be beneficial at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody's on dialysis, the dialysis machine is doing the job of the kidneys and filtering things out of your blood. It's going to remove some toxins from the body, and that's important. But unfortunately, it also removes some things like proteins, and you do need to make sure you have enough protein. So once somebody is at that point of being on dialysis, a higher protein diet is recommended. Um, Patients who are on dialysis are typically still going to be watching their salt intake. And water and hydration is something that also might start to shift.
Mhm.
If you are starting to see reduced urine output, you're making less urine because the kidneys are not able to produce urine. That might mean that you need to start to incorporate a fluid restriction. So
Mhm.
for people on dialysis who are no longer making any urine, that means that your dialysis treatment is the only way that you are getting any extra fluid off of your body. So patients not making any urine typically have a fluid restriction as small as about a liter or 32 ounces per day, which is not a lot. I think
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest challenges for people is the fluids if they're needing to limit those.
Yeah,
Um,
especially during the summertime. It's like for me, I have to like be like, okay, go get your popsicle or go get, you know, suck on some ice or something because you can't drink a whole bottle of water. So,
Yeah, that's one of the tricky ones. And yeah, we have to think about, are there other places where you can, get some hydration, or is it just a case of dry mouth and we need to figure out like a mouth spray or a gum to use to help stimulate some saliva? You have to really think strategically if you only have 32 ounces of water to drink, because if you
mhm,
go over that, your body is just going to retain that extra fluid, and you're going to hold on to that until you go in for your next dialysis treatment. And it's not healthy for the heart, for the lungs, to have a lot of that extra fluid on. So
yeah,
it's a really tricky balance. I
mhm,
would say the other thing that is probably the biggest struggle and a big part of the diet for somebody who is on dialysis is phosphorus. Phosphorus and fluids. Those are the two things that people struggle with the most. Phosphorus is really tricky because it's in a lot of different types of foods. And phosphorus is a mineral. It is found in our body, in our bones, and phosphorus also helps with energy production in the body. And we primarily get it from foods that we eat. Um, we can find it naturally occurring in foods like meats, chicken, fish, eggs, beans, nuts, seeds. But there's also an artificial, more processed form of phosphorus that we
mhm,
find in our more processed foods. Things like Coca Cola, lunch meats, sausages, honestly, lots of different types of processed foods. Phosphorus might be added. The thing to know about this added artificial phosphorus is that it's highly absorbed into the body, like
mhm,
90 to 100% absorbed into the bloodstream. So if you are struggling with high phosphorus levels, it's going to be really important to try to limit this added or artificial phosphorus that could really have a significant impact on your labs. Um, on the other hand, the phosphorus that comes from the more natural sources, especially beans and nuts and seeds, a lot of these foods have been traditionally thought of as off limits for a kidney diet because they have phosphorus. But what we know now, and what it says in the most recent kidney nutrition guidelines, is that the phosphorus in those types of foods where it's naturally occurring, it's not very highly absorbed. And yes, you're going to get a small amount of phosphorus from those foods, but the benefits of including things like nuts and beans and seeds and peanut butter outweigh the fact that there's a small amount of phosphorus. All those plant foods are very, very nutritious. There's fiber, there's healthy fats, a lot of good vitamins and minerals, iron, things that are really beneficial. So those are a lot of foods that traditionally have been off limits, but these days I really recommend those types of foods to most of my patients on dialysis. And of course it varies. Each person is a little bit different, and I'm not saying to go crazy, like, snacking on like out of like a bag of nuts all day long, because even though
right,
that phosphorus is less absorbed, it's still going to add up if you eat a
mhm,
lot of it. But it's not something that has to be completely off limits. And I think that's the biggest shift with this change in the kidney diet is we saw a lot of these things as off limits. Now you can include some of these foods in moderate amounts. And This is why it is important to work with a dietitian to make sure that you are eating these types of foods in an amount that, your dietitian feels is the right amount for you, and you feel comfortable eating those things, knowing that you can still keep your labs well controlled.
Yeah, so speaking of like the phosphorus and the phosphorus levels,
Hmm.
I speak with like the younger uh demographic on dialysis. So what are
Hmm.
some healthy on the go foods alternatives that people on CKD can get, because
Hmm.
I don't work, but I still find myself like out and about a lot, and then I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
hungry. What can I get?
Hmm. Hmm. I'm a huge fan of packing some kind of a snack to bring with you, just because you don't know when you're out and about where you're going to be, what you're going to have access to, and odds are you might get hungry at some point in time. So, honestly, one of my favorite go tos these days, again, based on our more recent guidelines, is something like a packet of nuts or trail mix, something like that, that is like you can just like throw it in a tote bag, throw it in a purse, have it in your car, just in case you need something for a snack. Something like
Hmm.
that is a really great option. Um, Other quick things like pretzels and hummus, popcorn, fruit like a banana or an apple that you can carry around with you. There's a lot of great protein and nutrition bars, and that I'm finding a lot of better tasting ones. I think there's a lot of bad
Yeah.
protein bars out there that are really like
Yeah.
chalky and chewy, but I'm finding a lot of better products. There's one that I really like called, it's like an Aloha bar, and there's also one called an IQ bar that are made with plant protein. They both have a pretty good texture.
The IQ
And
bars are definitely good. I saw
yeah.
that when you posted that on Instagram. I said, I need
Mhm.
that. And I went and got like just a couple just to try, and I
Yeah.
love them.
I like them because they're not super sweet either. Some protein
Yeah.
bars are like they're like overly sweet and they taste kind of artificially sweet. Those ones are kind of nice. So yeah,
Mhm.
big fan of those. I'm glad you got to try them.
Mhm. Yep. Um so what are three things people can do to protect their kidneys with diet, starting today?
Starting today. So I would say the number one thing to do with diet is think about if there's an opportunity for you to eat more meals at home and dine out less. Um, Not saying you can never go out to eat or dine out, because I know that's something that we enjoy doing because it's convenient or it tastes good, we enjoy it. But oftentimes when we are dining out, you're going to be getting bigger portions of food. You're going to be getting higher fat foods with the less healthy fats, like the less heart healthy fats, fried foods. Things you get when you go out to eat are going to be higher in salt. And if you are cooking at home, you have more control over what's going in your foods. So you're going to be able to prepare meals that are lower in sodium, lower in those unhealthy fats, and that are overall a little bit more balanced. So that's my number one recommendation. And I don't like to approach this as, if somebody right now, if you go out and you grab McDonald's every day for lunch right now, I'm not telling you to like, okay, got to stop that this week, starting next week, no more McDonald's. I don't really like those cold turkey changes like that because I think that's really unsustainable. If you know that you currently go out to eat 5 days per week, as an example, pick one day that you're going to try to do something at home instead. And don't go into it just like hoping that you'll figure something out at home. I recommend going into it with a plan. So think about, okay, this Monday, instead of going out to eat, I'm going to plan to have some kind of a lunch at home that I can prepare for myself. What types of foods do I have around? What do I enjoy for lunch? What do I need to have on hand? Do I need to have, bread and sandwich fixings at home? Should I have some kind of a frozen meal from the grocery store on hand that I can have for an option? So, if you're looking to make that change to eating at home more frequently, you got to go in with some type of a plan to make sure that it actually happens. So that I would say is my number one tip. Um, my second recommendation, look for more opportunities to get more fruits and vegetables in the diet. And this is, again, one of those things that I think has oftentimes felt like a challenge to people with kidney disease because a lot of fruits and vegetables have been on these lists of foods to avoid with kidney disease because they have a lot of potassium in them. Going back to our current kidney nutrition guidelines from a couple years ago, what our new guidelines actually say is that we do not have a lot of evidence that links potassium in foods to your blood potassium levels. It also says there's many other things that can affect blood levels of potassium. And if somebody is struggling with high potassium levels, we should look at some of those other things instead of immediately cutting out high potassium foods. When I was working in my dialysis clinic, I had a patient who had been on dialysis for over 20 years, and she told me she had not eaten a single banana in over 20 years because she was afraid of how it would affect her. And that just broke my heart because it was something that she really enjoyed. And again, going back to those older kidney nutrition guidelines from 20 years ago, a very low potassium diet was part of that. But based on our recent guidelines, there's no longer a specific amount that's listed, it's individualized. And we also have this evidence to show that there's really maybe not as strong of a link between the foods you eat and your blood levels as we used to think. So, of course, always talk with your dietitian about what's right for you. But knowing this, whether you are following a lower potassium diet or allowing for a little bit more flexibility, you want to look for some opportunities to get some additional fruits and vegetables in your diet. There are a lot of really important nutrients in fruits and vegetables, vitamins and minerals, antioxidants. Um, Fiber is one of the big ones, and fiber is very important for digestive health. This is a whole other subject, but we also have a lot of emerging science that there's a really strong link between gut health, digestive health, and the health of the kidneys. And eating a higher fiber diet is very beneficial for maintaining a healthy digestive tract. So, incorporating more fruits and veggies, whether that's, having a piece of fruit for a snack, making a fruit smoothie, adding, an extra half cup of frozen veggies with your dinner, adding a salad. There's a lot of different ways you could look to incorporate those types of foods. And same with what I said with, if you're trying to make a change, take it slowly. Don't feel like you need to be like just like fruits and veggies all day long all of a sudden. If you're
Right.
not in the habit of doing that, pick maybe one item that you would like to try to incorporate into your week and make a plan for how you're going to use it. And that's going to
Mm.
be a really good starting point for making some of those changes. When you're trying to make diet changes, it's all about taking things slow and not doing a drastic overhaul. I think there's a temptation to make big sweeping changes overnight. I understand that because it's your health that's at stake and you want to make big changes to get fast results. But what I have seen time and time again is that when people try to make these really drastic changes, they get burnt out and say,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, I can't keep up with this." And, a week or 2 weeks later, come back to me saying, "Kate, I'm off the wagon, like help." And I said, "Well, I think you went out a little bit too hard there. You tried to go 110% when we needed to take it a little slower." So it's a
Right.
hard temptation to resist, but taking it slow and steady is always going to be the way to go. Um, so more cooking at home, more fruits and vegetables. And then the other thing that I would say, tip number three, is thinking about how much water you're drinking and the type of beverages that you're drinking. We talked about how water needs can be different for people in different stages of kidney disease, whether you are pre-dialysis or once you get on dialysis. But I really encourage in general to think of water as your primary source of hydration and trying to limit types of drinks that are maybe more sugary, that don't provide quite as much of the nutritional benefit. water, or flavored waters, sparkling waters, that should be the majority of your hydration. Your kidneys, if you think about like the structure of your kidneys, they're basically a bunch of little blood vessels. It's like a dense network of blood vessels, and
Mhm.
blood is mostly water. So in order
Mhm.
to make sure that blood is, flowing through your body, you do need to make sure that you are getting the proper amount of hydration, and plain old water is going to be the best way to do that. And if you don't like water, like I said, trying some different flavored water options. There's lots of different ones on the market these days, but I think my favorite to recommend is these like packets called True Lemon. They have
Mhm.
like lemon, lime flavor. There's like lemonade and like raspberry lemonade, a bunch of different options. So if you don't love water, you can think of different ways to flavor it. If you forget to drink water, a lot of my patients have success trying to make some sort of a schedule for themselves to make sure that they are drinking the right amounts at different times of the day.
Yeah, and like touching on the water, like
Mhm.
before I got like super I had the diagnosis, but I wasn't in the stage of being on dialysis. So I
Mhm.
was like looking up stuff and they were like drinking electrolyte water. And I did not know I was throwing my electrolytes off by drinking all of this electrolyte water. So
Yeah.
so, and then that's where like Google and stuff, it's confusing, because you're like, well,
Mhm.
how can I get the most impact of water in my diet? And they're like, electrolyte water. So you just go out and you buy electrolyte water and you're not
Yeah.
thinking like, I'm throwing my pH off, I'm throwing this off. And then that in turn
Right.
is throwing everything off in your body. So,
Right.
yeah, but just like you said, you got to take it gradually. People, I
Mhm.
feel like the younger demographic in this situation, they feel like they have to like take things head on, like you said, and just
Mhm.
do everything all at once. And it's like, no, you got to take it one step at a time. Like you said, incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your diet, which I am starting to do now because, like you said before, they were like, yeah, no, you can't have bananas. No, yeah, no, you can't have
Mhm.
melons. You can have all berries, just berries. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
I'm sick of berries. I got berries coming out my nose.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, just incorporating those other fruits and vegetables because I have noticed incorporating it has helped with like the fiber in my diet and helped with
Mhm.
the gut health because going through dialysis you get backed up.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
you
Especially if
and
you're having to limit your fluids, you're gonna get backed
hmm
up. And all the
yeah.
medications.
Yeah, so it's hard, and then
Mhm.
they want to correct that with like very harsh laxatives, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I just
Mhm.
give me a banana so I can go to the
Mhm.
bathroom.
Yep. Yeah, that's huge. That's one of the biggest things that's probably impacts, I would say, probably at least half, if not more, of people on dialysis is constipation. That's a huge, huge issue. And that's actually something that's being discussed in articles right now as one of the unintended consequences of telling people to stop eating bananas and all of these higher fiber foods. It was probably actually making that situation worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those types of foods are really beneficial for keeping things moving.
Yep. And I hope that, the progression of the dietitians in the CKD world, I hope that it gets kind of on a faster pace because
Hmm.
I'm always finding that a lot of people in the clinic are always coming to a roadblock as far as like their diet
Hmm.
and what they should eat versus what they shouldn't eat. And it's always a lot of no, 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 but they're not
Hmm.
giving the alternate options for them to actually eat. So then they're just like, well, I'm gonna eat what I want to eat, and then they're finding
Right.
themselves sick. So yeah, I
Right.
definitely hope that the progression in the dietitian world with CKD and just chronic illness patients in general definitely keep up with the times. I hope that they just throw all that old stuff away.
I agree. I agree. I don't like the approach of just giving a big list of foods not to eat. That's not helpful. We need to help, as healthcare professionals, we need to help you understand what you can eat and help you figure out, okay, what's a good option for you to have for breakfast tomorrow? What does a good option look like when you go out to eat with your family this weekend? That's what's actually helpful. And I could go on probably a really big rant about our healthcare system in general. I think part of the issue is that oftentimes as clinicians, we don't have enough time to explore those things really in depth. And it can be easier to just say, oh, your potassium's high. Okay, stop eating bananas. Instead of really
Mm-hmm.
going into the situation in depth and saying, oh, okay, how can you incorporate this food in a way that makes sense for you? We don't necessarily have time for that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the challenge for sure. But there are definitely a lot of providers that are unfortunately a little bit behind the times on the information that they're sharing. That's why I try to do what I can to educate not just patients, but fellow dietitians, doctors, other healthcare providers to make sure that we are all on the same page in helping our patients to not feel as restrictive and really feel like, you can thrive and enjoy a wide variety of foods while still keeping your health front of mind.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Kate, for coming on and talking with us today. It was such an eye opener. You
Yes.
guys go and follow Kate at the Kidney Dietitian on Instagram. And you have any final words to say?
Yeah, I'll just add so yeah, you can follow me over at Your Kidney Dietitian, and right now I'm actually enrolling for a 6-week kidney nutrition class. If anybody's interested in joining, it's a 6-week online program. I also work with patients one-to-one in virtual appointments online. I have a blog. I have a free Facebook group called Plant-Based Recipes for Healthy Kidneys. If you're interested in exploring more of that plant-based, I truly believe that knowledge is power, and always advocate for yourself. Continue to educate yourself so you can make the most and best educated choices to help yourself live a great life and have a balanced diet and enjoy the foods that you eat. And know that there are resources out there to help you. There's people like me and other kidney dietitians as well that are providing great information. I'll also just mention if you are looking for a kidney dietitian to work with, like hiring your own kidney dietitian or finding one that your insurance covers to work with, the National Kidney Foundation has a directory of kidney specialist dietitians. The website, it's kidney.org/CKDRD. And or you can just go to the kidney.org National Kidney Foundation website, and I think navigate to it from their homepage to the dietitian directory. But you can look for people who are local in your state or telehealth options. There's a pretty good amount of us doing telehealth appointments these days, and there's more and more dietitians starting to get into this space. And just know that you're not alone. And as dietitians, we're not the food police. Or at least I try not to be the food police, and I think most of my colleagues who are trying to stay with the current guidelines and be a little more progressive in our thinking, we're not just going to hand you a list of foods to avoid. We want to help you enjoy what you eat and help you understand what types of foods you actually can eat and include. So that's my spiel.
Okay. And you guys, I will drop those links for you in the description box below. And thank you again, Kate. And yes, your Facebook group, I tried the two pasta salads, they are one my even my little brothers like it. So
Nice.
yeah, uh-huh. Those recipes are
Awesome.
really good.
I'm glad to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bye you guys. Until next
Bye.
time.
To life, back to reality.